Last night, your soulmate broke down in tears. The reason will leave you stunned. Don't skip. Listen to this carefully. This message is for you, and your heart needs this right now, because last night something happened that your soulmate never expected. Something emotional. Something unforgettable. Something that caught them completely off guard. And listen to this. The evening began normally. Nothing unusual. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that would make anyone expect tears. Your soulmate followed their routine. Finished the tasks they needed to finish. Spent time thinking about ordinary things. Prepared for another ordinary night. Yet sometimes the most emotional moments arrive when we least expect them. And your heart needs this right now because the heart often chooses its own timing. Not our timing. Not the world's timing. Its own timing. Last night, the heart decided it was finally time to speak. And listen to this. At first, your soulmate didn't notice anything different. They were distracted. Focused elsewhere. Occupied with daily concerns. Yet beneath the surface, something was quietly happening. A memory had begun rising. A memory they hadn't visited in a long time. A memory that had remained hidden beneath countless responsibilities and distractions. The memory appeared gently. Almost invisibly. Like a whisper. Like a forgotten song suddenly playing again. Like a photograph discovered in an old drawer. And your heart needs this right now because certain memories never truly leave us. They simply wait. Patiently. Silently. Until the perfect moment arrives. Last night was that moment. And listen to this. As the memory became clearer, your soulmate found themselves slowing down. Thinking. Reflecting. Remembering details they had not considered in months. Perhaps even years. The atmosphere of the memory returned. The emotions returned. The meaning returned. And suddenly it felt as if the past had stepped into the present. Everything felt real again. Everything felt immediate again. Everything felt alive again. Because your heart needs this right now because meaningful memories carry emotional fingerprints. Even after years pass. Even after circumstances change. Even after life moves forward. The emotional impact remains. And last night, your soulmate felt every bit of it. And listen to this. One memory became another. Then another. Then another. The mind opened a door. And behind that door waited hundreds of moments. Moments of growth. Moments of connection. Moments of kindness. Moments of understanding. Moments that seemed ordinary while they were happening. Yet now appeared extraordinary. Your soulmate began realizing something. The most valuable experiences in life are often recognized only after they become memories. That realization hit harder than expected. Much harder. And your heart needs this right now because appreciation often arrives late. People rarely recognize the full value of a moment while they are living it. Understanding comes later. Reflection comes later. Gratitude comes later. Last night, gratitude finally arrived. And listen to this. The emotions continued growing. Slowly at first. Then more quickly. Your soulmate felt their chest becoming heavy. Their thoughts becoming emotional. Their heart becoming full. Yet they still didn't understand why. They thought they were simply remembering. Simply reflecting. Simply revisiting old memories. But something deeper was happening. Something much more important. And your heart needs this right now because emotions are often messengers. They arrive carrying truths we have not fully acknowledged. Truths we have postponed. Truths we have overlooked. Truths we are finally ready to understand. Your soulmate was approaching one of those truths. And listen to this. The room was quiet. The night was calm. Everything around them remained unchanged. Yet inside, an emotional storm was beginning. Not a storm of sadness. Not a storm of pain. A storm of realization. The kind of realization that changes perspective forever. The kind of realization that makes someone stop and reevaluate their entire journey. The kind of realization that arrives only a few times in life. And your heart needs this right now because perspective is powerful. A single realization can change years of thinking. A single realization can change how we view our memories. A single realization can change how we view ourselves. That realization was getting closer. Closer every minute. Closer every memory. Closer every emotion. And listen to this. For a while, your soulmate simply sat there. Not speaking. Not moving. Not distracting themselves. Just feeling. Really feeling. Perhaps for the first time in a very long time. The walls they normally kept around their emotions began disappearing. The defenses began disappearing. The distractions began disappearing. Only honesty remained. Pure honesty. And honesty has a way of revealing extraordinary things. And your heart needs this right now because the truth often appears when everything else becomes quiet. When the noise disappears. When the distractions disappear. When the heart finally has room to speak. Last night, the heart spoke clearly. And what it revealed would soon bring tears. Real tears. Unexpected tears. Life-changing tears. And listen to this. Just before midnight, the realization finally began taking shape. Your soulmate started understanding why those memories felt so emotional. Why those moments felt so important. Why the night felt so different. The answer was hidden in something they had overlooked for far too long. Something beautiful. Something meaningful. Something powerful. And the moment they finally understood it, everything changed. Their eyes filled with tears. Their emotions overflowed. Their heart opened completely. Because sometimes people cry when they lose something. But sometimes people cry when they finally understand something beautiful they had been carrying all along. Last night was one of those nights. Don't skip. Listen to this carefully. This message is for you, and your heart needs this right now, because after the memories returned and after the emotions began building, your soulmate finally started asking themselves an important question. Why am I feeling this way? At first, they believed the answer was obvious. They thought it was nostalgia. They thought it was loneliness. They thought it was simply one emotional night. But as the hours passed, they realized something surprising. The tears weren't coming from sadness. The tears were coming from understanding. And listen to this. The more they reflected, the more they noticed a pattern. Every memory that returned carried a similar feeling. Not regret. Not pain. Not heartbreak. Something else. Something warmer. Something deeper. Something they had not fully recognized before. Gratitude. Real gratitude. The kind that catches people off guard. The kind that arrives unexpectedly. The kind that becomes so powerful it overwhelms the heart. And your heart needs this right now because gratitude can be just as emotional as grief. Sometimes even more emotional. People expect tears when something is lost. Few people expect tears when something is finally appreciated. Yet that is exactly what was happening. And listen to this. As midnight passed, your soulmate continued revisiting old moments. Not major milestones. Not life-changing events. Small moments. Simple moments. Moments most people would probably forget. A conversation. A smile. A kind gesture. A few encouraging words. A brief interaction. Things that seemed ordinary when they happened, yet somehow remained alive inside their memory. The more they thought about those moments, the more emotional they became. Because suddenly they understood something. Those moments had shaped them. Quietly. Without announcements. Without attention. Without recognition. And your heart needs this right now because some of the most important influences in life are invisible while they are happening. We notice them only later. When enough time has passed. When enough growth has happened. When enough perspective has arrived. That perspective arrived last night. And listen to this. For years, your soulmate had focused on what still needed to happen. The next goal. The next challenge. The next responsibility. The next problem to solve. Always moving forward. Always chasing something. Always looking ahead. Rarely looking back. Rarely stopping. Rarely appreciating. But last night forced them to stop. Forced them to pause. Forced them to see everything differently. And your heart needs this right now because sometimes life's greatest lessons arrive during moments of stillness. Not during action. Not during achievement. During reflection. Reflection reveals what rushing often hides. That revelation was beginning now. And listen to this. One memory suddenly stood out from all the others. A memory they had almost forgotten. A memory that seemed insignificant. Yet when it returned, it brought an unexpected wave of emotion. Why? Because the memory revealed something important. It revealed that someone had helped them during a difficult period. Perhaps without even realizing it. A simple act of kindness. A simple conversation. A simple presence. Yet the impact had lasted for years. The realization hit hard. Very hard. And your heart needs this right now because kindness often leaves deeper marks than people realize. People forget advice. People forget information. People rarely forget how someone made them feel. Your soulmate was discovering that truth firsthand. And listen to this. The tears began falling more freely now. Not uncontrollably. Not dramatically. Honestly. The kind of tears that appear when someone finally sees their life clearly. The kind of tears that appear when appreciation becomes impossible to contain. The kind of tears that appear when the heart becomes completely transparent. For the first time in a very long time, your soulmate wasn't defending themselves from emotion. They weren't distracting themselves. They weren't pushing feelings away. They simply allowed themselves to feel everything. And everything came rushing forward. And your heart needs this right now because emotions that are ignored do not disappear. They wait. Quietly. Patiently. Until the moment they are finally acknowledged. Last night, many emotions received acknowledgement for the very first time. And listen to this. As the tears continued, another realization appeared. Perhaps the most important one yet. Your soulmates suddenly understood that many of the things they valued most could not be measured. Not by money. Not by achievements. Not by status. The things that mattered most were memories. Connections. Experiences. Moments. Feelings. Things that cannot be placed on a resume. Things that cannot be displayed as trophies. Yet things that give life its deepest meaning. That realization changed everything. Because your heart needs this right now because people often spend years chasing success while overlooking significance. Success impresses the world. Significance touches the soul. Last night, your soulmate reconnected with significance. And it moved them deeply. And listen to this. Hour after hour, the understanding continued growing. The tears continued falling. The memories continued returning. Yet now everything felt different. The emotions were no longer confusing. They finally made sense. The heart was not breaking. The heart was awakening. Awakening to appreciation. Awakening to gratitude. Awakening to truths that had remained hidden beneath everyday life. And that awakening felt powerful. More powerful than they expected. And your heart needs this right now because awareness changes everything. The moment someone truly appreciates their journey, the journey itself begins to look different. The struggles look different. The victories look different. The memories look different. Everything gains meaning. That meaning was becoming visible now. And listen to this. By the time the night grew quiet again, your soulmate finally understood why the tears had arrived. The tears were not about loss. The tears were not about sadness. The tears were not about something ending. The tears were about finally recognizing how much beauty had already existed within their life. Beauty they had overlooked. Beauty they had underestimated. beauty they had taken for granted. And realizing that truth filled their heart completely. So completely that words were no longer enough. Only tears remained. Tears of gratitude. Tears of understanding. Tears of appreciation. And those tears were preparing them for an even bigger realization still to come. Don't skip. Listen to this carefully. This message is for you, and your heart needs this right now, because after the tears started falling and after the hidden gratitude finally revealed itself, your soulmate discovered something even more surprising. The tears were not only revealing the past. They were revealing the truth about their own heart. And listen to this. For hours, your soulmate sat quietly in the darkness. The night was silent. The world seemed asleep. Yet inside them, something powerful was happening. Every memory they revisited seemed connected to another realization. Every realization seemed connected to another emotion. Every emotion seemed connected to a truth they had never fully understood before. And your heart needs this right now because sometimes we know ourselves less than we think we do. We understand our routines. We understand our habits. We understand our goals. Yet we rarely stop long enough to understand our deepest emotions. Last night, your soulmate finally stopped. And what they discovered surprised them. And listen to this. At first they believed the tears were about memories. Then they believed the tears were about gratitude. Both explanations were true. But neither explanation told the complete story. Something deeper existed beneath both. A truth hidden underneath years of distractions. Years of responsibilities. Years of constantly moving forward without stopping to reflect. That truth was waiting patiently. Waiting for the right moment. Waiting for enough silence. Waiting for enough honesty. And last night, all three finally arrived. Because your heart needs this right now because honesty creates clarity. Clarity creates understanding. Understanding creates transformation. Your soulmate was beginning to experience all three. And listen to this. The first realization appeared quietly. Almost gently. They suddenly understood how much of their life had been spent trying to stay strong. Trying to stay productive. Trying to stay focused. Trying to keep moving. Always moving. Always working. Always solving problems. Always carrying responsibilities. Yet rarely stopping to ask one simple question. How do I truly feel? That question felt unfamiliar. Almost uncomfortable. Because they had spent so long focusing outward that they had forgotten to look inward. And your heart needs this right now because self-awareness often arrives after long periods of emotional silence. We become so busy managing life that we forget to listen to ourselves. Last night, your soulmate finally listened. And the heart had a lot to say. And listen to this. The more they listened, the more they realized something remarkable. Many of the things they thought mattered most no longer seemed as important. The worries. The comparisons. The pressure. The expectations. All of it suddenly seemed smaller. Not because those things disappeared. Because something bigger had appeared. Perspective. A deeper perspective. A more meaningful perspective. And your heart needs this right now because perspective changes priorities. When people truly understand what matters, many of their fears lose power. Many of their worries lose importance. Many of their burdens become lighter. That was exactly what was happening. And listen to this. Another memory appeared. Then another. Then another. But this time they noticed something different. The memories that affected them most were never connected to achievements. They were connected to feelings. Connection. Kindness. Understanding. Support. Love. Acceptance. Those were the moments that survived. Those were the moments that remained alive. Those were the moments that still carried emotional power. The realization stunned them. Because your heart needs this right now, because life often teaches the same lesson repeatedly. People matter. Connection matters. Love matters. Meaning matters. Everything else comes second. Your soulmate was finally seeing that lesson clearly. Perhaps clearer than ever before. And listen to this. As the night continued, another truth emerged. A truth that felt impossible to ignore. For years, your soulmate believed emotional strength meant suppressing emotions. Pushing through. Staying focused. Avoiding vulnerability. Avoiding tears. Avoiding difficult feelings. But last night taught them something entirely different. Real strength is not avoiding emotion. Real strength is allowing emotion. Allowing honesty. Allowing vulnerability. Allowing the heart to speak. And your heart needs this right now because vulnerability is not weakness. It is courage. Real courage. The courage to face your own emotions without running. The courage to acknowledge truths you have ignored. The courage to feel everything fully. Your soulmate found that courage last night. And it changed them. And listen to this. The tears continued falling. Yet now they felt different. They no longer felt confusing. They felt meaningful. Purposeful. Necessary. Almost healing. Because every tear seemed to release something old. Old pressure. Old expectations. Old emotional weight. Things they had carried without realizing it. Things they no longer needed to carry. And your heart needs this right now because healing often begins when we stop resisting what we feel. Resistance creates tension. Acceptance creates freedom. Your soulmate was experiencing that freedom now. And listen to this. Then came the biggest realization of all. The realization that brought the deepest tears. The realization that completely changed the meaning of the entire night. They finally understood that their heart had never been asking for more success. Never been asking for more achievement. Never been asking for more recognition. Their heart had been asking for presence. Presence in the moment. Presence in relationships. Presence in life itself. And suddenly everything made sense. The tears. The memories. The gratitude. The emotions. all of it pointed toward the same truth. Because your heart needs this right now, because the heart values experiences differently than the mind. The mind counts accomplishments. The heart counts meaningful moments. Last night, your soulmate stopped listening to the mind and started listening to the heart. And the heart revealed something beautiful. And listen to this. As the clock moved deeper into the night, a sense of peace slowly appeared. Not because every question had been answered. Not because every challenge had disappeared. Because honesty had finally arrived. The kind of honesty that creates relief. The kind of honesty that creates understanding. The kind of honesty that changes a person forever. Your soulmate was no longer the same person they had been a few hours earlier. Something inside them had shifted. Something important. Something lasting. Because your heart needs this right now, because emotional breakthroughs often happen quietly. No audience. No celebration. No recognition. Just a person alone with their thoughts, finally understanding something important. Last night became one of those moments. And listen to this. By the time the tears began slowing, your soulmate had discovered a truth they never expected. The most important relationship they needed to reconnect with was not another person. It was themselves. Their own heart. Their own emotions. Their own truth. And once that connection returned, everything else began making sense. The memories made sense. The gratitude made sense. The tears made sense. The entire night made sense. Because the heart had finally spoken. And for the first time in a very long time, they finally listened. Don't skip. Listen to this carefully. This message is for you, and your heart needs this right now, because after hours of reflection, after countless memories resurfaced, and after emotions flowed more freely than they had in years, your soulmate finally discovered something unexpected. The breakdown was not a breakdown at all. It was a message. A message hidden inside every tear. A message hidden inside every memory. A message hidden inside every emotion they experienced that night. And listen to this. For a long time, your soulmate believed emotions were interruptions. Something to manage. Something to control. Something to overcome. But last night challenged that belief completely. Because every emotion seemed to carry information. Every tear seemed to point somewhere. Every feeling seemed to reveal a truth. And your heart needs this right now, because emotions are often messengers. They arrive carrying lessons. Carrying awareness. Carrying truths we are finally ready to understand. Last night, your soulmate finally stopped resisting those messages. And began listening. Really listening. And listen to this. At first the message was difficult to understand. The tears seemed random. The emotions seemed overwhelming. The memories seemed disconnected. Yet the longer they sat with them, the clearer everything became. A pattern emerged. A beautiful pattern. Every memory that carried emotional weight shared something in common. Connection. Human connection. Meaningful connection. The memories that mattered most were never about achievements. Never about possessions. Never about status. They were about people. Moments. Relationships. Experiences. And your heart needs this right now because life often teaches the same lesson repeatedly. The things we treasure most are rarely things. They are moments. Moments that touch the heart. Moments that shape the soul. Moments that remain long after everything else changes. Your soulmate was finally seeing that clearly. And listen to this. As the realization deepened, another truth appeared. Perhaps the most important truth of all. They suddenly understood why certain memories remained so powerful. Not because they were perfect. Because they were real. Authentic. Honest. Human. The moments that touched them most were the moments when masks disappeared. When people were genuine. When kindness appeared unexpectedly. When understanding appeared unexpectedly. When love appeared unexpectedly. And your heart needs this right now because authenticity leaves permanent marks. People may forget words. People may forget details. But they rarely forget authenticity. Your soulmate realized how many authentic moments had shaped their life. And the realization was overwhelming. And listen to this. The tears returned briefly. Not because they were hurting. Because gratitude continued growing. The deeper they looked, the more reasons they discovered to be thankful. Thankful for lessons. Thankful for growth. Thankful for challenges. Thankful for every experience that helped create the person they are today. Even the difficult experiences. Even the painful experiences. Even the confusing experiences. Because suddenly they understood something remarkable. Every chapter had contributed something valuable. Every chapter. Without exception. And your heart needs this right now because wisdom often arrives when we stop dividing life into good moments and bad moments. Instead, we begin seeing all moments as teachers. Some teach through joy. Some teach through difficulty. Yet all teach something. That realization transformed everything. And listen to this. For years, your soulmate carried regrets. Small regrets. Large regrets. Questions about the past. Questions about decisions. Questions about roads not taken. Yet last night, many of those regrets lost their power. Why? Because they finally understood that every experience had contributed to their journey. Without one chapter, another lesson may never have appeared. Without one challenge, another strength may never have developed. Without one disappointment, another wisdom may never have emerged. And suddenly the past looked different. Much different. Because your heart needs this right now because acceptance changes how we view our story. The facts remain the same. The interpretation changes. And when interpretation changes, healing begins. Your soulmate was healing. Quietly. Deeply. Honestly. And listen to this. The message hidden inside the breakdown continued unfolding. Layer by layer. Truth by truth. Realization by realization. Until eventually one simple sentence formed inside their mind. A sentence that explained everything. I have spent too much time chasing what is next and not enough time appreciating what already exists. The moment that thought appeared, everything became clear. The tears. The memories. The emotions. The gratitude. All of it suddenly made sense. And your heart needs this right now because awareness changes everything. The moment we become aware, we begin living differently. Thinking differently. Feeling differently. Your soulmate could already feel that transformation happening. And listen to this. The night continued growing quieter. The world outside remained silent. Yet inside, understanding continued growing louder. For the first time in years, they felt completely present. Not focused on tomorrow. Not trapped in yesterday. Present. Completely present. And in that presence, they discovered peace. Real peace. Not temporary distraction. Not temporary comfort. Peace. The kind that comes from understanding yourself. The kind that comes from accepting your journey. The kind that comes from appreciating your life exactly as it is. And your heart needs this right now because peace rarely arrives through perfection. It arrives through acceptance. Your soulmate was finally accepting. Accepting the journey. Accepting the lessons. Accepting themselves. And listen to this. The breakdown that initially felt emotional now looked completely different. It was not a collapse. It was not weakness. It was not losing control. It was an awakening. An awakening to gratitude. An awakening to meaning. An awakening to everything they had overlooked while rushing through life. And that awakening changed everything. Because once someone truly sees the value of their journey, they can never fully return to the old way of seeing it. The perspective remains. The understanding remains. The gratitude remains. And your heart needs this right now because some nights become turning points. Not because anything dramatic happens. Because understanding arrives. Last night became one of those turning points. And as the final tears disappeared, your soulmate realized something beautiful. The breakdown had delivered its message. The lesson had been received. The truth had been understood. And now only one final realization remained. The realization that would explain why this night would stay with them forever. Don't skip. Listen to this carefully. This message is for you, and your heart needs this right now, because after the tears stopped, after the memories settled, and after the hidden message finally revealed itself, your soulmate experienced something they never expected. Peace. Real peace. The kind of peace that arrives after understanding. The kind of peace that arrives after honesty. The kind of peace that arrives after the heart finally speaks its truth. And listen to this. The clock continued moving. The night grew deeper. The room became quieter. Yet inside your soulmate, something extraordinary was happening. For the first time in a very long time, they were not fighting their emotions. Not questioning them. Not suppressing them. Not running from them. They simply accepted them. Completely. And your heart needs this right now because acceptance changes everything. The moment we stop fighting reality, reality stops feeling like an enemy. The moment we stop resisting emotion, emotion becomes a teacher. The moment we stop denying truth, truth becomes freedom. Your soulmate was discovering that freedom now. And listen to this. As they sat quietly, they began looking back over their entire journey. Not just recent memories. Everything. The difficult years. The beautiful years. The confusing years. The hopeful years. Every chapter. Every lesson. Every challenge. Every blessing. And suddenly they noticed something they had never seen before. Every experience had contributed something valuable. Even the painful experiences. Even the disappointing experiences. Even the moments they once wished had never happened. Because your heart needs this right now, because life rarely wastes our experiences. Sometimes joy teaches us. Sometimes pain teaches us. Sometimes success teaches us. Sometimes failure teaches us. Yet every experience leaves behind wisdom. Last night, your soulmate finally saw that wisdom clearly. And listen to this. The tears had dried now. Yet the emotions remained. Not heavy emotions. Not painful emotions. Meaningful emotions. The kind of emotions that leave a permanent mark on the soul. The kind that stay with a person long after the moment itself ends. The kind that quietly change how someone sees the world. That change was happening right now. And your heart needs this right now because some nights become milestones. Not because anything dramatic happens externally. Because something dramatic happens internally. A shift. An awakening. A realization. A transformation. Last night became one of those milestones. And listen to this. For years, your soulmate believed happiness existed somewhere ahead. In the future. Behind the next achievement. Behind the next goal. Behind the next accomplishment. Always ahead. Always somewhere else. Always waiting. But last night revealed a different truth. A beautiful truth. A life-changing truth. Many of the moments they valued most had already happened. Many of the reasons for gratitude already existed. Many of the reasons for joy had been present all along. They simply hadn't stopped long enough to notice them. Because your heart needs this right now, because appreciation often reveals treasures we already possess. We spend years searching. Only to discover the answer was already nearby. That realization overwhelmed your soulmate. Not with sadness. With gratitude. And listen to this. As they reflected further, another realization appeared. Perhaps the most important realization of the entire night. Life was never asking them to be perfect. Life was never asking them to have all the answers. Life was never asking them to control every outcome. Life was asking them to be present. To notice. To appreciate. To experience. To live. And suddenly years of pressure seemed lighter. Years of expectations seemed smaller. Years of unnecessary worry seemed less important. Because your heart needs this right now, because perspective has incredible power. Perspective can transform burdens into lessons. Perspective can transform regrets into wisdom. Perspective can transform ordinary moments into extraordinary memories. Your soulmate was experiencing that transformation firsthand. And listen to this. For a while, they simply smiled. A genuine smile. A peaceful smile. Not because life was perfect. Because life was meaningful. And meaning is far more important than perfection. The memories that returned no longer created tears. Now they created gratitude. The lessons no longer created regret. Now they created appreciation. The challenges no longer created frustration. Now they created understanding. Everything looked different. Because they were different. And your heart needs this right now, because growth often becomes visible only after it has already happened. People rarely notice themselves changing. Then one day they look back and realize they are no longer the same person. Last night was that day. And listen to this. The emotional breakdown that seemed so overwhelming at first now looked completely different. It wasn't a breakdown. It was a breakthrough. A breakthrough into gratitude. A breakthrough into understanding. A breakthrough into self-awareness. A breakthrough into peace. The tears had not been signs of weakness. They had been signs of healing. Signs of awakening. Signs of growth. And your heart needs this right now, because healing rarely looks the way people expect. Sometimes healing is loud. Sometimes healing is quiet. Sometimes healing arrives through answers. Sometimes healing arrives through tears. Last night, healing arrived through tears. And it changed everything. And listen to this. As the night slowly approached morning, your soulmate made a silent promise. A promise nobody else heard. A promise made entirely within their heart. To appreciate more. To rush less. To notice beauty while it is happening. To express gratitude more often. To stop waiting for perfect moments before allowing themselves to feel joy. That promise felt important. Deeply important. Because they finally understood something. Life moves quickly. Moments become memories. Days become years. Years become stories. And the people who appreciate the journey often experience the richest lives. Your soulmate wanted to become one of those people. And your heart needs this right now, because appreciation transforms ordinary living into meaningful living. It transforms routine into gratitude. It transforms existence into experience. It transforms life itself. That transformation had already begun. And listen to this. Just before sleep finally arrived, one final realization appeared. A realization so simple that it almost seemed obvious. Yet somehow it carried enormous power. The realization was this. The reason they cried was not because something was missing. The reason they cried was because they finally saw how much they already had. The memories. The lessons. The growth. The connections. The experiences. the journey, everything. And that realization filled their heart completely. Because your heart needs this right now, because gratitude is one of the most powerful emotions a person can experience. It creates peace. It creates joy. It creates perspective. It creates healing. Last night, your soulmate experienced all four. And that is why this emotional night will never be forgotten. Not because of the tears. Not because of the memories. Not because of the emotions. But because of the understanding those things created. The understanding that life had already been far more meaningful than they realized. And once that truth became visible, it could never be unseen.